everybody, welcome back to another episode of whatever this is called, the podcast where, if 80s tropes were in line, we'd be happy to be sucked into a movie screen or a television set for the rest of our lives. Just do it. Make it happen. Do it. I am Scott Taylor, as always, here with me, Mr. Steven Garcia. Steve, how you doing?
Fantastic. I'm really excited to get into this subject because, as you know, the 80s was a big time for me. And it was just the highlight or the golden age of my youth of watching, just, sitting down watching TV was like what I did when I was a kid. And so I'm excited to get into it and rehash some memories here.
Yeah, it's like you were talking earlier about how we're like 5 years different, something around there. So the 80s to you is a little bit different than the 80s to me.
Yeah.
I've got a tinge of the 90s there, right? Because before 5 years old, you're not really watching a whole lot more than Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers.
Right. Yeah.
That stuff. So I feel like our core there for me is going to be like 85 through 90, and yours is going to be on the earlier end of the 80 to 85 spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. There's only one that's kind of later in the 80s, but yeah, it's generally 81, 82 to like 86, somewhere around there. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk through them like kind of by genre? I feel like a lot of these are going to be either family type movies, like they're referring to as like Amblin Core, and then there's other ones that are going to be a lot of the comedies. I feel like. Well,
mine are they're kind of like there's a couple on here that I'm going to start out with that are kind of they're half hour or 22 minutes, but they're kind of, it's Stephen Bochco. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a big time producer that did a lot of him and Donald Belsario did a lot of the TV shows in the 80s that were kind of big hits. There's a lot of misses, as you'll see some in my list, but they're kind of like this serious comedic thing that predates a lot of stuff that you're seeing now. And I think that's really why a big reason why a lot of these didn't stick was because they're just really ahead of their time. And TV back then was more geared towards, if you had a drama, it was geared toward maybe an hour-long drama. These were 22 minutes. These are little snippets. And it kind of, like I said, it predates a lot of the stuff that came in the 90s and even now. So, yeah, it's really cool, man. Go ahead and start. Jump in.
Yeah, well, a lot of my stuff, as far as forgotten 80s movies and things that kind of jump to my head there, are stuff I would have seen on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
Once we got cable and we had HBO, you're flipping through the channels and you just catch something, and you catch it multiple times. You start it in the middle, then you get the first third of it, and then finally you actually see the beginning part of it. And that's a lot of what mine is. The one that jumps out into my mind seeing a lot on HBO was just one of the guys, just one of the boys or guys. Which is it? Just one of
the movie.
The movie.
Yeah. All right.
That jumps out at me. Just one of the guys. 1985 gender swap movie. It might be because there were boobs. That might have been why it jumped out at me on HBO, because that kind of sticks with you when you're around that age.
When you're that age, you're like, wow. Yeah,
you're watching, I'm talking about like The Grind on MTV, like, and, pausing it and be like, whoa, look at that. But just one of the guys, I remember seeing the movie and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. It wouldn't have been something that we would have rented, friends, sleepover, something like that. This was just, if you're caught on an HBO, you're like, what is going on here? And it was just a teen female who wanted to be taken seriously with her journalism, and so she decides, I'm going to pretend to be a dude, and then hijinks ensue. Yeah,
that was one that I'd always seen at the video store and was always interested in renting it, but there was a criteria that I had as a kid, was that if the cover was a little risque, then I wasn't going to rent it. I would try and watch it somehow, but I wasn't going to rent it. I'd get my uncle to rent it or something if it was that thing, and normally he would. I mean, I watched Porky's when I was like 8, 9 years old, which just didn't. Yeah, I remember that one though. That one was, it was like one of those movies like Last American Virgin or Class. which is what's his name's first movie, John Cusack.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those trying to get laid movies, and this one was kind of the role reversal of. I don't know what the premise was. Do you remember the premise?
Yeah, she well, I think she wanted to go to college or wanted to be taken seriously under the high school newspaper.
Oh yeah,
and wanted to get a scholarship, and they weren't taking her seriously because she was female.
Ah, that's right.
So she goes, I'm gonna go to this other high school as an actual male, and she went in as a male and had her hair cut and all that, and dressed like a male, and becomes friends with a dude, and then at the falls for him, and at the end she's like, I have something to tell you. And he's like, I don't care. I believe he goes, you're gay, like something like that. And then she just rips her shirt open, and he's like,
That was the money shot, as we say in the industry. It's an industry term. Yeah, that's a good one. And I just realized that I don't have ADD or ADHD, whatever you call it. I don't have that. But what I do have is some certain block that comes up when I get really invested in something. So I remember the topic was forgotten, or at least, or just what is it, like the 80s movies that were kind of not mainstream, that were kind of on the radar. I went TV, and I've totally just got into the TV show. So a lot of my list is TV. I can't jump in. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk. You get the TV aspect covered, then I'll spark the movie aspect.
Sweet. For me, these were just like one-hit wonders, but they were kind of like, again, a precursor to what came later. This one was called The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd, and it's kind of it was a show about. It's with Blair Brown, this actress Blair Brown, and it was just about this kind of a divorced New York woman trying just to navigate her life in these crazy ways. Now, when I watched this, I watched an episode last night of this, the first episode, the pilot episode. And it has like titles like Why Women's Cosmetics Should Come in Unbreakable Bottles. Just stuff like that. It was quirky. At the time, this came out in 87. Started in 87. It's one of the later ones. This was a time when a lot of you didn't see a lot of shows about women, independent women, trying to navigate through that. Now you see it all the time. Ally McBeal comes to mind. Sex and the City. It kind of has that same vibe of like there's a narration by the main character. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment, and it's just her trying to navigate her life. Here's some of the dialogue that. She's having lunch with her mom, and her mom says, out of all the available men in New York City, why can't you scare up somebody white? And she answers, well, I went to the albino center, mother, but it was closed. So it was kind of this thing of like there was still a lot of, I wouldn't say bigotry because it's not necessarily, but it was still comfortable to say those kind of things in the TV and kind of address things. Another line is like, her ex-husband is in the apartment, and they're having a conversation about how he's getting remarried, and she's starting. He asks her, "Why do you buy the non-fat milk?" She says, "Well, because of the calories." And he goes, "Well, you look fine to me. It doesn't seem like you need to worry about that." She says, "Well, now that they're in their 33rd year, and something insidious is beginning to happen to them." So it's just this kind of witty back and forth kind of dialogue, which is kind of like the Gilmore Girls comes to mind. That kind of like rat-a-tat-tat kind of dialogue. So it's The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. It was on NBC. It's kind of like the precursor to a lot of these other shows that came out, like Ally McBeal or Sex and the City, kind of Gilmore Girls kind of stuff. You saw this is basically kind of the blueprint for all of that stuff. It has a lot of the kind of witty dialogue. It's a lot of stuff that really wasn't addressed, or you didn't see it a lot in TV, a lot kind of like this, I don't know, off color, but it's just kind of racially maybe insensitive now, but back then they just let it fly. Really interesting point that I wanted to make to you is this was created by a man named Jay Tarsis, and I want to ask you, do you know who that is?
He was the lead singer of Dinosaur Jr.
Yes, exactamundo. No, he was in.
Oh, that's Jay Mascis. Okay.
He we went and saw Teen Wolf, right? Remember that?
Mhm.
Remember the coach in Teen Wolf? That's Jay Tarsis.
The one offering the chicken?
Yeah. The one that's hey, mi casa, su casa. Oh, I got a problem. Oh yeah. Well, as you can see, I'm a very busy man. You know that guy, that dude. He developed this show with Susan Shaughnessy, and it was great. It kind of just jumped around. It didn't really find its own. Now it's popular. I mean, I was on. Can't remember where I was. I think I was on Threads, and somebody, maybe it was because I watched it, but I saw this thread come up of, I'm looking for the episodes of the Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. I loved that show when it was on. Does anyone know where I can see it? And I just wrote, it's on YouTube. You can watch the whole. Now it's in 480, so it looks like you're looking through a foggy
like a security camera.
Yeah, but that's just how TV was back then. It was a lot of sets, a lot of that kind of stuff. The exteriors were in New York, but they filmed it in L.A. So go figure. Great show. I watched it a couple times. It was kind of like in the vein of 30-something. Remember that TV show? But yeah, that's my first one. The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't. So yeah. What do you got, buddy?
Well, staying on the line of the comedies of the 80s, things people might not remember. Just a couple of the rapid fire ones here. You on Gonna See My Friends, you guys did Johnny Dangerously, right?
No, but we were going to.
You're going. I thought. What did you do then?
Mr. Mom, we were going to do.
Oh, yeah.
Right? No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting confused with. You did a Val Kilmer movie, right?
Oh, Real Genius.
Real Genius. That's what I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
With. So yeah, Johnny Dangerously, Michael Keaton, pre-Beetlejuice.
I love this movie.
Rarely cited. You've got that. You've got random movies like Meatballs Part 2.
Yeah.
Which I feel like we should do an episode on Swerves, where the sequel is nothing like the original.
Well, before you get going on this list, let's talk about Johnny Dangerously a little bit. Did you enjoy that movie at all? Or have you seen it?
I remember enjoying it. I haven't seen it in years. It's been a really long time.
HBO had it, I think last year. It had it for a little while. I watched the crap out of it. Again, it's the Stephen Lohr. I think I've talked about this many times. Growing up, we had the blank tapes with the 3 movies on each tape. Had a bunch of those. Johnny Dangerously was on one of those. That's a great movie. So fun. Michael Keaton, Amy Heckerling, who did I think she did Fast Times at Ridgemont High, did this. It's just kind of this what is it, a parody of all the gangster movies of the 30s. It's just great. It's just a great movie. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, it's one of the comedies that you don't hear talked about a lot anymore. And that I don't know if you took a kid nowadays and showed it to them that they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, you farragon sneaky bastard. Yeah, I don't know if the comedy would hold up because it's such a parody of a niche genre that I don't think a lot of people understood the kind of. I mean, I don't think it was a big success, but in video cassette market, it found its audience there, and it's fantastic. It's up there with Mr. Mom, I think. For me, it was one of Michael Keaton's best movies. So
I'm pretty sure that would have been an HBO one for me too.
Yeah,
and just like Meatballs Part 2 would have. I mean, it's just you get the original Meatballs. That was just just a sexual romp. Right, that's all it really was. And you have Meatballs Part 2 that just swerves, and now it's like a summer camp, and there's an alien involved somehow. There's like these telekinesis powers, and it's just really strange. It's the only thing that could be done in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. I got my next one is this. My next one is it's a TV show. Everybody knows who John Ritter is, right? You know John Ritter? Three's Company.
Stay tuned.
Oh, and that too. Yeah. He did this TV show by Stephen Bochco, who did Hill Street Blues, who did NYPD, did all these popular shows. In the 80s, he was kind of like, I don't know, he did Cop Rock. If you remember that one, do you remember that at all?
I do remember Cop Rock.
Well, he did this one called Hooperman with John Ritter. He played Harry Hooperman. He plays this San Francisco cop. They shot the exteriors in San Francisco, which is great at the time. And he plays 22 minute. Oh, he plays a cop, and it's 22-minute format. So a half-hour format, but very serious. This was his attempt to get away from the whole physical humor, slapsticky kind of humor of Jack Tripper. But he has little bits of it here and there. I mean, because you can't really that was him, so you can't really get away too much of him. But he plays the first episode. He plays a cop, and his landlord, who lives in the first apartment downstairs, gets murdered and leaves him the building. So he becomes the superintendent of this building, and plus his cop duties. And it's really this really serious kind of. It's really cool. I watched an episode of it last night while preparing for this, and I remember seeing this when I was a kid. And this was later. This was, I think it's like 86, 87. 86. It was only one season, 22 episodes. So I think only 13 were aired. And it was really cool to see, because now you see this all the time. Maybe in a longer format, like an hour, but you see this kind of cop drama with kind of, it's more of a character study. It's more of a slice of life as opposed to shootouts and chases and all this kind of things. It's just about how this guy navigates his life, in San Francisco as a cop, being a good cop. And it was really interesting. I remember seeing it as a kid and going, oh man, you start watching it 1 week, 2 week, then the third week it's on a different night. So you got, I don't watch TV on that night, so I'm at baseball or whatever it is. And so it just kind of gets lost in the mix. Next thing you know, but I wanted it to succeed because I love John Ritter. But that was Hooperman. Did you ever hear of that one?
Hooperman. Yeah. Never heard of Hooperman. I've heard of Mr. Hooper.
Yeah.
Not Hooperman.
Yeah. So it was compared to like Bosch. Now it's on Amazon, and kind of cop shows like that, like True Detective season 2, maybe. Kind of more introspective. It was great. It's cool. Yeah. So that's Hooperman.
Hooperman, like Spider-Man. So I was going to jump into the, I guess, probably the coming of age teen drama is the next likely segue there, which there's a couple out there. The Sure Thing, of course, Cusack. They didn't want Cusack for Sure Thing, from what I understand.
Oh, really?
But they finally gave in because he had just been like this nerdy like sidekick in Class, right?
Class and 16 Candles.
Yeah, and so they didn't see him as like a leading man for Sure Thing and Better Off Dead. Better Off Dead specifically, right? And that's Better Off Dead we could do a whole episode on.
Yeah.
But the Sure Thing, you've got...
I just saw that movie for the first time.
The Sure Thing? Yeah, it's a...
No,
it's
Better Off Dead.
Yeah, Better Off Dead is great. There's kind of a trilogy. There's Better Off Dead, there's The Sure Thing, and...
One Crazy Summer?
One Crazy Summer, yeah. So that's kind of the trilogy of that Cusack era. But I was going to talk about... this one just popped up when I was doing my research, and I remember seeing it, but I don't remember much about it, so I'm hoping maybe you do. It's from 1980.
Okay.
Do you remember My Bodyguard?
Oh, yeah. I never saw it. I just remember it being around. I never really saw the movie, though. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that being around, and I just... it's the same with the first one you did, just one of the guys. It was just one of those ones that were like, it kind of flirted with that, like, B-movie, soft core porn kind of stuff, and it was like, I don't know if I should rent that. Of course, my uncles probably rented it, but I just never saw it.
Yeah, My Bodyguard, it popped up for me, and in that same genre, I watched the Slow Clap from Lucas, which is probably the best slow clap in history, right? Just the end. Lucas gets to his locker, opens the door, and sees the jacket there, the Letterman jacket, and they just...
That's just after he gets obliterated in the game, right? He gets out of he goes in the hospital and stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
everyone's just standing there, just waiting to clap. Jeremy Piven's giving his approval look over the shoulder of the lead bad guy. They're clapping, and the teacher's looking, what's going on over here? And they're just all slow clapping. It's probably the best slow clap of all time.
Is Can't Buy Me Love, would that be considered... that's a popular one, right? Can't Buy Me Love. Have you seen that one?
I have
with
a long time ago, right?
yeah, because
Patrick Dempsey.
there's a slow clap in that one too when he gets outed as, he bought this girl, he paid $1,000 for this girl to date him for whatever it was, and everybody turns at the party. She turns on him because she's drunk and like outs him, and everybody turns on him because he was the popular guy, right? And then he gives a speech that next Monday at lunch. The football guys are picking on his friend who he ignored when he was like popular, and he gives a speech of like, when we were kids, remember you fell out of my tree house and broke your arm. We walked you all the way to the hospital. Man, we were, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then he leaves, he walks, and the big guy goes. And then the whole lunch yard is like clapping. I love those, man. Those are great.
Yeah, you gotta love a good slow clap, and that was the era of the slow clap.
It was.
What do you got for TV?
Well, I got this one called. Wait, where am I? Oh, I've said this one to you before. Talked about it just a bit. Manimal on NBC. Or maybe it was CBS. I can't remember. But it's about this English. Simon McCorkindale. What a name, huh?
McCorkindale. McCorkindale. You'd have to ask Mick. I don't know about his personal life.
Here we go. I got to get my notes up on this. Jesus Christ. Manimal. It's a 1983. Came out in 1983. Created by Glenn A. Larson and Donald. Oh, Glenn A. Larson. He made.
He made the Far Side comics.
No. This is way before that. But he did Knight Rider amongst a lot of other things. He also did Quantum Leap. He was just a big time producer, TV producer. Simon McCorkindale as Jonathan Chase, a sophisticated British professor who can shapeshift into any animal to help the police fight crime. Right? Although canceled only after 8 episodes, it gained a lasting cult following for its campy premise and early use of practical transformative effects. Now, the effects are kind of like, I know you fell asleep, but Teen Wolf, when he turns into the werewolf, you see the old, and it's those kind of bladders that they stick on your face to do all that. It's kind of like that. Yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, he's a wealthy zoology professor and criminologist who inherited mystical training that allowed him to transform into animals. Using these powers, Chase partnered with NYPD detective Brooke McKenzie, Melody Anderson, who played Flash Gordon's girlfriend in Flash Gordon, the 80s movie, which we got to do on Gonna See My Friends. We have to do that one. And Tyrone Ty Earl, which is the professor in Gremlins. Hey, come on here, little fella. That guy. And they solve crimes that ordinary law enforcement could not. The show's signature narration, voiced by William Conrad, which did the narration for Knight Rider, the intro, Amen. That one. So it was campy. It was one of those ones where like I was saying before we started, like I was a kid and I didn't know how TV shows actually operated. So I would watch this and be like, this is awesome. I mean, it was 83. It only lasted 2 months, 3 months. So 83, I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And I was like, this is the best thing ever I've ever seen in my life. But then you'd watch it, and then after whatever, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever, or 8 weeks, it just disappeared. And then I had no idea why it just disappeared. I didn't know that it got canceled. I just thought, they must be somewhere. But see, I was so regimented in my TV watching that it didn't occur to me that it just canceled. I just thought they just put it on a different night, and then, I don't watch TVs on that night or whatever it was, But this was one of the ones that were kind of like, this was the kind of TV shows that I watched as a kid. And Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard, this. I have another one coming up on the list called Misfits of Science with a young Courtney Cox. And the guy that did the guy that was Harry and the Andersons, that and he was Predator in the Predator movies. Kevin Michael Hall or something like that. I forget his name. He was a part of the Misfits of Science. These are all these quirky people, like the X-Men, really, basically, but not the X-Men. They just had all these really quirky powers. So I was just watching stuff like that as a kid, because, yeah, that's just the kind of TV shows that were on in the 80s. As long, you also had Tom Selleck and Magnum. You had Family Ties. You had Cheers. You had all these blockbuster ones that kind of lasted a long time. But I'm just talking about the ones that were like 8, 9 episodes, and then they were like, this is too dumb. They just yanked them. So, yeah, those are my next two.
Did they explain how he got the power to turn into animals?
Probably in the show they probably did. I just see the Wikipedia premise, and it just says that he inherited mystical training that allowed him. So in the pilot, he gets in this taxi cab and he's like, follow that other taxi, because there's another taxi that took off. And he's like, all right, keep your eyes on the road. Don't look back here. And he's like, the guy's like, okay. And he's driving.
That's going to get you a bad Uber rider rating these days.
And he starts to turn around. I said, keep your eyes on the road. And then he starts. Now, if you heard that in a New York taxi or LA, whatever, you would just say, hey, man, get your hand out of your pants or whatever. But then they show his hand like this. And it turns into a black paw, and he turns into a Black Panther. And not the Marvel one, but this is pre-Black Panther. Or he'll turn into a hawk and chase people and attack him as a hawk. And I think those are the only two. I can't remember. There was a third one, and I can't remember what the third one was. But it was just really campy and really silly, and it was...
So... But now I'm confused about this panther issue. So this is me going logistical here. So he gets
Yeah.
to the cab, and then he's like, follow them. And then he turns into the panther.
And he jumps out of the window when they stop.
Okay, because I was wondering, like, did he use the handle? That was my concern, because panthers don't have thumbs.
Yeah. So when he gets into the taxi cab, he rolls down the window. And
Smart man.
He's like, the cab that they're following stops at this building, and the guy gets out and goes into the building. And so the guy's like, hey, man, the guys went into the building and the taxi's leaving. What do you want me to do? Hey, man. And he turns around and it's an empty backseat, and he's just like, and then you see the panther like climbing in the warehouse, because they're in their warehouse, and he's climbing on all these boxes, and they trained it really well, because it's just him like jumping on boxes or jumping down, and then like there's a shootout, and it goes into this alley, and the main cop, Melody Anderson, is chasing it. And then he walks out with his suit and everything. And she's like, oh, my God, there's a wild animal loose. You could have been killed. And he's like, well, I didn't see anything. Takes off. And then she walks further in. And she's like, it's a dead end. Where could he have gone? That kind of thing. And
so he's a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's different than the Incredible Hulk, right? So my question with the Incredible Hulk, it's always like, what happens to his pants?
Yeah.
Right? He should be running around with his schlong running in the wind, right? Just flap, 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 flap as he's pouncing, down the street to beat up Yeah. But if he's a shapeshifter, so what happens to his clothes when he shapeshifts?
Yeah, I know.
Can he shapeshift fabric?
They do not address that. So
I need the logistics.
Yeah.
I need the logistics of that. That's in my brain as a viewer, as a consumer. I need to know, like, what's happening here?
Yeah, they never addressed that. And as a kid, I was like, that's cool. Like, I just never thought about that.
As a kid, you suspend your disbelief. I'm effed as an adult. I can only think about what's happening to his, his cargo pants.
What if they're just laying there and someone steals them or soils them or does something to them? Yeah, you're right.
Spider-Man takes his off, right? Like, takes his outer, changes into his outfit.
And he puts it in either his backpack, a little spiderweb backpack on his back, or he hangs it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, but his body doesn't really change, right? So it's just clothes, and it's kind of like Clark Kent with the outer wear.
Yeah.
But if you're just shapeshifting, I wonder, like, what happens? And you talk about Mystique, right? She can be her natural, like, just blue, naked outfit, normal body that she's not ashamed of. But then she can, like, shapeshift into clothing, and she was like, oh, yeah, this is my attire, right? She never has to buy a piece of clothing.
She's just in her regular body, that beautiful body, that shapely body.
Beautiful, shapely, muscular. She never has to do laundry, right?
Yeah.
Does Mr. Manimal have to do laundry? That's my question. Like, does he have to? Okay, so I'll backtrack from that. My only second question here is: imagine you are a up and coming actor, and you're like, oh, I got my first big role. I'm gonna get a union card, a SAG card. And you go in and they're like, okay, application. First name, Simon. Last name, McCorkindale. And they go, I'm sorry, that's taken. And you're like, what? No one's going to be able to know me as Simon McCorkindale?
Well,
Instead of your agent going, maybe you go with something different. Maybe you go with something that's a little shorter, a little punchier.
he's like, this is where I draw the line. I've been pushed around in Hollywood. This is where I
am
draw
a
the line.
McCorkindale. My father was a McCorkindale. My grandfather McCorkindale.
Well, and also the pilot, one of the main criminals is Terry Kaiser, which is, Weekend at Bernie's guy, the guy that is Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's. So, there's just a lot. I mean, TV was a playground for a lot of these up and coming actors, or actors that you just see like everywhere all the time. The Huberman episode, at the end, they catch the robber because he robbed some other place, and they caught him there doing that. It's this guy that's I don't know his name, and he's a day player, featured player probably, but you see him in everything. So when I saw him, I'm like, oh, that's that guy. It's like one of those, oh, that's that guy. One of those, you see him everywhere, but you just don't really know. It's never a big part. It's always like a side part. Like he's like one of the thugs, or he's like a blue collar worker or something, in a TV show. And so these TV shows were just ripe with all these people that you're like, oh wow, I know, I've seen that guy in tons of stuff, Anyways, all right, your turn.
Well, to tie in with Manimal, let's go over to movies in the sci-fi genre. People might still remember, but you don't hear a lot about. If you had a kid watch it nowadays, they're not going to get the same effect as us. And what sparked this whole episode was us talking last week and you bringing up D.A.R.Y.L.
Oh, yes.
1985. You've got an AI kid who's created by the government and then escapes, gets fostered, and then has just all this power and this brain power, and can kind of like Pluribus, right? That he can like fly a plane. Like he has all these skills, and it's like, I can do anything.
And who was the dad in this? The dad,
Michael McKean.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, this was a TV. Well, this was a movie that in the early days of renting movies, I rented this one a couple times because it was a kid and it was a kid movie, and there was a kid who was the main character. And I just remember it was one of those movies I watched all the time. I would rent it and watch it front to back, rewind, watch it again, that kind of thing. I was just a weird kid. And but now I can't tell you what happens in that movie. I loved it when I watched it. I haven't seen it since then, though. I haven't seen it probably since the 80s. And so I don't really know what. I know that, like you said, he escapes, right? And then the government's after him. But that's all I really remember from it.
Yeah, the only thing I remember is the scene with ATM where Michael McKean is trying to buy food for the Little League after game or whatever, and he's got no money, and so D.A.R.Y.L just puts his fingers on there. It's like, and he just has a whole bunch of money in there now. Yeah, that's all that I remember. You have this whole genre of kids and sci-fi, and kids being mixed up with either government technology or just some sort of space technology. And the whole gamut of them. You had Explorers, right?
Explorers.
With Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. That's another one. Kids build a spaceship. Joe Dante directing it.
Now let's go ahead. Sorry, no.
I was gonna say it came out right like 9 days after Back to the Future, and it was rushed to. Yeah. They wouldn't let Joe Dante finish it.
It has no ending. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just no ending. Yeah, it's weird.
So you just had to put it out there, and it just gets. Covered, just overlaid by Back to the Future, and I think Live Aid was at the same time.
Yeah.
So it only found its footing on VHS.
Well, look, I mean, if we're talking about D.A.R.Y.L and Explorers, we got to talk about this other movie that traumatized you as a kid. We got to do it because we're going to do it for Going to See My Friends. which is I'm gonna skip mine, skip this one for now. Just get into yours because I know it's on your list. Is Cloak and Dagger, right? Cloak and Dagger. Is it on your list? Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk about that.
It's in that group. I mean,
Yeah.
you got the kid who's got this technology from like an Atari cartridge.
Yeah.
And it's got this super technology inside of super secret information, and he starts getting stalked by it because of it. He gets chased by spies and good guys and bad guys coming after him, trying to get that information.
Yeah, it's got Henry Thomas, fresh off E.T., and Dabney Coleman as his dad. And this is a single dad. He works for the Air Force, I think it is, and he's an only child, so his imagination is just he befriends this like video game seller that works in the mall, and he goes there and he hangs out after school and he plays video games with this guy, and that's all they do is they play video games. And he says, "Hey, you got the new Cloak and Dagger?" "Oh yeah." Well, I think the game was made specifically for this movie, but I played it and it was really cool. It was really fun. I mean, tell us about your traumatic experience with this movie. I think you've maybe said it before, but let's revisit that.
Yeah, we've did an episode go back into the catalog of movies that traumatized us, or moments in pop culture that traumatized us. And I, for the longest time, just had this memory of seeing a movie where a kid gets chloroformed. And in my head, it was on like a train station platform. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I just couldn't remember where it was, but I remember flipping through the channels and I just got really scared by it. And it's burned into my memory. And flipping through, talking about the traumatized one episode, I figured out that it was this movie. It's him being helped by an elderly man, an elderly woman that he trusts, and he gets in the car with them. And he's looking for a woman with 4 fingers, and she pulls off her glove, and there's 4 fingers, and she chloroforms Henry Thomas, and that just it stayed with me.
Well, the scene is, if I remember correctly, is that he's getting chased by these 2 thugs who were part of the team that these 2 older gentlemen. I remember the grandfather or the older gentleman of the couple was in Psycho. He was the town sheriff or something like that. Anyways, he's getting chased to the Alamo and he runs into these 2 older gentlemen. Or was it the airport? I can't remember. Now I can't. I thought it was the Alamo. But anyways, it takes place in Houston. So anyways, he's at the airport and he runs into these 2 older people. These are my grandparents. And they actually kind of cover for him and be, yeah, this is their grandson. That's just a video game, that I bought for him or something. So they leave, he gets out, they go to the car, and that's when he gets chloroformed, and it's crazy. It is kind of traumatic, man, because this was also the time when kids, in order to get on their adventure, they have to face this real danger of and especially in this movie, of spies and espionage and contract killers and thugs and people shooting at you. So yeah, I could see how that did traumatize you, because that is pretty traumatizing.
Yeah, and it's funny because just that one, I don't remember seeing any of the rest of the movie, just that one scene. So it must have been flipping through HBO and finding it.
Oh.
These other ones that we were talking about, I remember those. I remember Explorers, I think. And the big one that I remember of the same genre, not the popular Short Circuit, right? Everybody remembers Short Circuit.
Yeah.
But Battery's Not Included.
Oh, yeah. I never saw that, but I remember it.
Yeah, it's 1987, and it was actually ties in with TV because it was conceived by Spielberg for the 80s television anthology Amazing Stories.
Oh, is that what it was?
And they expanded it into a feature film, and it made a decent amount of money. It's just this weird movie where like these little flying UFO type creatures, they kind of look like the creature in Obi-Wan, the series Obi-Wan, that's flying around, a little disc creature. And again, it's 1980s. Everyone was against the property managers. Everyone wanted to destroy and rebuild and kick people out of their homes. And that was the premise here. And these little creatures come and actually help out this building of people that are going to have their home destroyed. Everyone in the 80s was worried about corporations taking over their building space, and now here we are again. Not to get political about it, but here we are again. So hopefully we get some more of these little alien creatures to come out and help us out, I guess.
Well, more in that vein of what you were just talking about. I'm not going to get political at all either, but this kind of fits into today's goings on. Is Max Headroom? You remember this dude?
Yep.
So this was a TV show that was adapted from a British TV movie called Max Headroom, adapted from the British telefilm Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future. It ran from March 31st, 87 to May 5th of 88. It was on ABC. Had Matt Fewer, who was a big time. He was in, I think, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and a bunch of other stuff. He was in The Watchmen, the movie. And it blends dystopian satire and media critique, and the show followed a near future world dominated by television networks and digital personalities. It's kind of what you're seeing now, and it kind of comments on the TV news and the corporate control of TV news is kind of what we're seeing now. And I think now though it's more of like rich people just buying TV news stations and doing that. But Matt Fewer, he's an investigative journalist. He carries around a camera. He's always filming himself, and this is a precursor to a lot of the stuff what we're seeing now. And he gets some juicy stories. He finds this story. He's getting chased because they see him getting filmed or filming them. He's on his motorcycle and he hits those things that come down in parking garages, and he hits one of those and he gets a head injury. So in order to save him, they have to put his consciousness into this digital thing called Max, and it becomes Max Headroom. And he ends up getting better, but this Max Headroom is kind of his alter ego and is able to kind of get his way into certain things and kind of get the dope on what's going on with the government and all that kind of stuff. So it was really ahead of its time because it only lasted a year. And I remember watching it as a kid. And again, these things, I'm like, 12, 13 years old at this time. And I want to understand it. It's a little over my head. Days and Night, Molly Dodd. I'm not a woman, but I still loved watching it. But Blue Thunder is another one on here. Max Headroom, just these types of TV shows those were easy to get into. This one was brand new. It was weird. It was different. It was dark, and I wanted to like it, so I watched it. But I had no idea what was going on at the time. But yeah, it's pretty cool, man. It's a good show, but ahead of its time. It just didn't find its audience. And I think if you watched it now, I think you could comment on a lot of stuff that's going on now. So, yeah.
And people might not remember it from the TV show. They might remember it from the Pepsi, right?
Pepsi
commercials.
Yeah.
And then also the 80s Cafe and Back to the Future 2.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That they have Max Headroom kind of welcoming people inside, and then it turns into Michael Jackson, right? Like
Michael Jackson, Ronald Reagan. Yeah.
Ronald Reagan. So it'll change between all of them. Something that ties in, I always like the conspiracy stuff, not conspiracy, but the kind of the weird things on the off edges of media, whatever. And I think I've talked to you before about the Max Headroom signal jacking or hijacking.
Yeah. And I saw that. And when I was doing this, I saw that it's still on YouTube. You can see it on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. That some dude or group of dudes just hijacked a signal back in the day in 1987. So that's right around when the show was happening. And they just hijacked it, and then it was just a dude in a Max Headroom mask with this rotating background, just really weird. It took some skill to figure out how to do that back then.
Well, and that nowadays you do that, the FCC is right on you, the FBI or whatever is right on you because they could track everything now. But back in the day, it was a radio signal, so you can get the area of maybe where you got the signal, but you couldn't pinpoint where exactly these people were doing it at. And it's still, they don't know who did that. So,
yeah, I recommend anybody out there that hasn't looked into that. It's really interesting stuff, really kind of creepy stuff to think about. Back in the day, you'd just be sitting there watching TV, and then all of a sudden this broadcast would just cut in. Just really, really weird. Watching Doctor Who. And all of a sudden, poof, there's Max Headroom getting spanked in the fly swatter. It's really strange. I do remember that show, though. I remember Max Headroom. Well, my last chunk here is kind of the Amblin core. It ties in with the Batteries Not Included, right? And the sci-fi stuff a little bit. Flight of the Navigator, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Disney cult classic there. But in the same line there of the sci-fi, the Amblin, the family movies, let's talk Cocoon a little bit.
Yeah, all right.
Cocoon was, nowadays you could have a kid watch that and they wouldn't be interested. First off, it gave us the Wilford Brimley line, right? Which is the age that you turn what Wilford Brimley was acting in this movie.
That's right. Yeah, he was
And
like
the pop
44.
And it's just made its impression, right? Like, how old was Wilford Brimley? How old is it that people feel old? And in this movie, he was in a retirement home. Wilford Brimley line. So the Wilford Brimley line, you can go to the website, and it's how old he was when Cocoon reached theaters in July 1985. And that was 50 years, 9 months, and 6 days
50 years. He was my age.
He was 50 years old, not even 51. And he was in a retirement home in Cocoon. And we were all like, that dude is old.
Yep, he didn't have to act. He was that age, and
He is ancient. Dude, I want to be in a retirement home with alien pods when I'm 50 years old. Right? I'd take it. Give it to me. But Cocoon, Cocoon was a big movie. Back in the day, it was a lot
Ron
of
Howard,
pop culture references, a lot of themes in there.
Yeah.
I remember, as a kid being like, man, it kind of creeped me out a little bit. Because just the premise of it altogether. And it was a PG-13 movie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, was that Spielberg? No, it was Spielberg produced, right? Or did Spielberg have a hand in that at all? I know Ron Howard directed it, but...
Yeah, Ron Howard directed, produced by David Brown, Richard Zanuck, and Lily Finney Zanuck.
Oh, maybe not. Okay. Yeah, and then Wilford Brimley shows up in The Firm in 91, I think. When he threatens Tom Cruise. Mm-hmm. Imagine your wife going out to get her cattle. I can't remember the lines, but it's...
yeah, and then you got the diabetes ads.
Diabetes.
That becomes a classic.
Diabetes. When you're sliding in the first and you're feeling something burst, diabetes. No, that's not. I think
you're a little off there. But yeah, there's it's aliens. It's an elderly home, retirement home. It's just strange. Just a weird movie.
Well, it's a good one. That's one I watch again. In the 80s, I would watch movies like they were like leaving, and I had to watch it and get my fill. Watch it all the time. And some of these movies, like Cocoon, I haven't seen since that time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll just get through a couple of mine, and I won't talk too much about it. I just want to get through
go for it. Let's round it out.
We had this one called Tales of the Golden Monkey, which came out in 82 to 83, one season, 22 episodes. I don't think they were all aired, but...
You say Tales of the Hidden Monkey. See, this is the age difference. I started thinking about Legends of the Hidden Temple on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, maybe.
Which was the game show where they had like a temple and they did all these physical challenges.
Oh, really?
Were called the Golden Monkeys, the Bronze Lions.
This one was Stephen Collins. I think his name is Jake. I just wrote their names, didn't write the character names. But anyways, Donald Belisario, who did a lot of. He did Quantum Leap. That's who Belisario did. Anyways, this is set in 1938. This one came out to capture the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Raiders of the Lost Ark came out in 81. So this one tried to capture that audience. It's about this guy, Stephen Collins, who's fresh off of probably Star Trek, the motion picture, and he plays a pilot who is part of the Flying Tigers, which I guess is maybe a I don't know, a Flying Tigers pilot, but now he runs this kind of air cargo service. There's Nazis involved. He's getting artifact of the week kind of thing, kind of like the librarians. Roddy McDowall was in this. I don't know if you know who Roddy McDowall is. He's a famous British actor. He was in
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes as well, yeah. It was just Indiana Jones. The set, the feel, everything was more of that feeling. 82, I was 7 years old. So it was again, that thing of like, I love this TV show. This is so great. Where'd it go? Type of thing. So it didn't last very long, but it was great. Another one, Blue Thunder, the TV show, which had in 1984, coming off trying to capture the audience for the movie that came out before. This one has James Farentino and Dana Carvey. Just miscast, but he's trying. I saw the pilot episode last night again. Dick Butkus and Bubba Smith are in it. They're the team that drives around following the Blue Thunder. And then my last one is Street Hawk, which is basically just Knight Rider on a motorcycle with Rex Smith. And the motorcycle could go like 300 miles an hour. It didn't talk back, but it had all the gizmos that Knight Rider had, the kit from Knight Rider had. So it was kind of that same idea. That didn't even last a whole season. I think it lasted 13 episodes, but he gets hurt in the line of duty. They recruit him to ride this experimental bike, and now he fights crime with it. So those are the kind of TV shows I was watching that just didn't get a chance. Maybe because they sucked or the premise was just too cheesy and campy. But other ones were just ahead of their time, and just if they came out in the 90s or the early 2000s, they would have been hits, I guarantee, like Hooperman, Days and Night, Molly Dodd type of stuff. Yeah, that rounds out my list. I think that's all I got. Let me see. Manimal, Hooperman. Yeah, that's all I got. That's my list.
Yeah, that's a lot of it's probably just before its time. It's either the technology has to catch up to it, like Manimal, right? Like you do that premise, and maybe they could do more than 3 or 4 animals.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Well, now you have the technology to do that. Yeah, and I don't think it's because of the lack of, I guess, budget, but I think now you could kind of make that into something. There's this other one I had that I didn't really talk about because I couldn't really find that much, but also because it was in the 90s. But in '89, Rick Springfield did this movie called Nick Knight. Nick Knight being Knight. And he was a cop in New York, but he was also a vampire. So he worked the night shift. He was trying to find a cure, and he runs into the guy that made him a vampire, and it was like this 2-hour movie. And then that got made into a series, and Rick Springfield got replaced by this other dude, and it became a series that lasted like 3 or 4 seasons. But stuff like that, you could just do that now, I think. And with the production, because back then the production was pretty shoddy, a lot of night stuff. So you had that early 90s, late 80s kind of neon light type of blue light, pink light, purple light kind of stuff that informed the lighting kind of situation. And now you could just do it. And I think you could kind of pull off those things now. But back then you couldn't.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies and TV that we probably didn't get to. That's just kind of lost out there. I was thinking earlier today, like movies that at some point there's the last copy of something will just disappear, right? There are movies that will just be gone footage that people will never see again, that maybe it's not digitized or it's digitized, but then it's way off in the back somewhere that nobody's going to get access to. The movie studios aren't putting out and people aren't purchasing, or someone randomly owns. They buy a whole batch of backlog at some point and back stock of movies, and they own them, but it just never sees the light of day again.
Well, the Sure Thing, I don't think it's available for rent or a physical copy unless you get like out of print copies. But
and that's what made me think about it, because my friend Chris was talking about trying to rebuild his physical collection. Yeah. He's like, Sure Thing is expensive.
Yeah.
And to me, getting a physical copy of stuff, like you get a DVD if you need to. You don't have to go Blu-ray with it. The DVD will last a long time too, and it will upconvert for you. But there's movies that people just haven't thought about in a while, and then there's movies that may just disappear at some point. Who's going to save Project X? Matthew Broderick training chimps to fly. Yeah. Aircraft in the Air Force. Who's going to save that? It's probably out there somewhere for streaming, but for how long? It's when 20th Century Fox gets purchased or whatever, and then it passes hands, and we get into this situation where movies are just gone. They just poof. And It's back to just one old timer telling the story of how when I was a kid, there was a TV show where a man turned into animals. You know, it was called Manimal.
Well, there's another movie that I watched on HBO. It came out, I think, in '80 or '81. It was called Caveman, with Dennis Quaid and Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr was the caveman, and it was just about these two factions of cave people in the cave like the Flood Flintstone era, and they had like, it was just like funny. It was like a comedy that I cannot find anywhere. I think now I can find it maybe on YouTube or some like website or something that has old movies, but like I just recently in the last probably 5 years I found it again. But before that, I mean, I couldn't find that anywhere. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there's just so much stuff, especially in the 70s and 80s, when a lot of that, say 80s especially, you had a lot of cocaine, so you had a lot of like people going, listen to this, I got this idea, and they just they had the money and they had the like the wherewithal to go, yeah, so.
Much like the streaming era we just ran through. We just burned through the streaming era where they were just like, yeah, here's money, make it. Here's money, make it. Here, make it. Or they're like, oh, it's already made, great. We'll buy it from you. We'll buy it from you.
Yeah.
Same kind of cycle. And maybe we'll get there again where they're just buying all these crazy ideas and some of them stick in an 8-year-old's head like they did Manimal to you, and movies entering public domain. It's something like 95 years, right, in the U.S. that movies reach that point. So we're only at like movies in the 30s.
Yeah.
Imagine when we're gone and we're in the ground and these movies have become public domain. How many are people going to care about then to be able to do new stuff with them?
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing that now with this generation and the TikTok era, right? You're seeing a lot of old songs being played to like dances and stuff, but you're also seeing a lot of audio being pulled from these old movies from like the 80s. And I think I saw an Instagram reel the other day where some guy these two guys, they go out in public, like on the beach, and I'll do this one. They go to like car shows and these two guys recreate the dialogue from the Fast and the Furious. But, so one guy would be like to some random stranger being like, hey, this, and then the other guy will walk in and be like, hey, don't listen to him. And then they just do all this like, and it's the dialogue from the movie. And it's so funny because the stranger will be like, and they also did one with Point Break. He had a surfboard and he's like, surfing's a way of life, and then the other guy comes. It's crazy, but they're pulling from these movies that we watched as kids. And now they're becoming sort of like, for me, the 70s was the age of like auteur filmmaking, and kind of the golden age of Hollywood for me, my age. And now you're seeing kids like doing 90s movies like that. Oh, Point Break, man, Keanu. And it's like, geez, man, I just saw something on Threads about the Keanu and some other people auditioning for Bill and Ted. And they had all these people like talking. It's so great, man, to see that, for me, like Psycho and The Godfather and, all these great movies that I hold in high regard. Now there's kids that are holding like Point Break or the prequels, the Star Wars prequels of like, this is my childhood. And it's like, oh, shit. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, which movies survive. There's some of these random ones we just talked about today. Probably not the mainstream ones. They'll stick around, but hopefully we've made them stick around a little bit longer just by talking about them on here. That maybe you'll go check them out. Maybe you'll see if you can find them on YouTube, which ones you can find, which ones you can download, which ones you can buy physical copies of. But let us know, did we miss anything? Is there anything in the 80s TV movie-wise that you don't want to disappear, that you feel people don't know about, and you want it to stay in the vernacular I think that's what vernacular means. Of the lexicon.
Vernacular. Yeah.
Vernacular of the lexicon.
The zeitgeist.
The zeitgeist of the vernacular of the lexicon of movies. Let us know in the comments. Put it in Instagram, YouTube, wherever you find us. Let us know, because we want to know what movies you like. What TV shows do you remember? We hopefully will go, yes, we remember that. Oh my gosh, we haven't thought about that in so long. Those are the feelings we want to pull out here. So let us know. Leave comments. Once again, this has been another episode of whatever this is called. Remember, we're not mad. We're just disappointed. We'll see you next time.